Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
It's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, DJ Envy is off, and we have a great guest in the building today. She's an attorney. She's a thought leader. She's an author. Her name is Corey Minor Smith. She has a new book out called Driven. Good morning, Miss Smith.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you all doing?
Good morning. Love the yellow.
Thank you.
Now, you have a new book out, Driven. It's a memoir, but it's a self-motivational memoir. What is it about?
Yes, it's called #Driven, and it is a motivational memoir, but I use it as a resource for families and friends that have a loved one living with severe mental illness. A lot of times people don't know what resources are available in the community. Many times, a lot of people who are suffering with a severe mental illness are left alone, dismissed by family and friends because they don't know what to do to help that person. So I use my life story to help individuals who are in the position that I was in and dealing with my mother who suffers from schizophrenia.
Wow. What do you think it would do to, what do you think it would take to completely eradicate stigmas of mental illness in the Black community?
Well, first of all, we need to recognize the stereotypes that we associate with mental illness. Many times, perhaps it's the people that are untreated, who are in psychotic states that we associate with the term mental illness, and therefore anybody that's dealing with depression or anxiety or just mild symptoms don't want to be associated with those images, and therefore the stigma prevents us from getting therapy, prevents us from seeking treatment that is readily available. And in order to eradicate it, we have to acknowledge that it is present, it's real, it doesn't discriminate with anyone, regardless of your gender, your race, your socioeconomic status. So it's important for us to acknowledge it, to accept it, to love our loved ones through the symptoms that they exhibit, and then ultimately advocate by talking about it, using your platform, which I appreciate you all doing today. This is National Mental Health Awareness Month. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And this is a 365 global issue. So all throughout the year, we need to continue to talk about it and then take action through legislation, seeking research and funding that can help us to know about other medications that may help individuals who are experiencing severe mental illness.
I wanted to ask you a question about, I get several Ask Ye, that's the advice segment that I have, and several people have emailed me, and they're in relationships with people who they feel are suffering from mental illness, but the person doesn't want to seek professional help, and they don't know what they should do. Should they stay in the relationship? What are some options available if you are in a relationship with somebody who you feel like, okay, they do need to get professional help, but they're not willing to do that? What would you advise?
Yeah, I would advise the person who is asking that question to seek help for him or herself. For example, having consultation with organizations like NAMI. They can help you to establish effective tools in continuing the relationship with that person, or understanding that you may not be able to continue the relationship with that person. Ultimately, being able to set boundaries. And depending on what the mental illness is, you have to be aware of the potential symptoms that that person can exhibit, especially if you're dealing with severe mental illness like schizophrenia and bipolar. Those types of severe mental illnesses left untreated can be dangerous, and you wouldn't want to put yourself in that position.
What is the AAA strategy to destigmatizing mental illness?
Actually, something I just went over, but acknowledging, accepting, and advocating. A lot of us want to ignore or deny symptoms. For example, if we're in that relationship, and the person is exhibiting things, don't ignore that. You have to be cognizant and aware of potential symptoms and knowing that you are not putting yourself at harm. Acknowledging also includes learning more about illnesses so that you can help your loved one to cope, to build up the tools necessary to have the highest quality of life, and then acknowledging in a sense of knowing about the resources that are available in the community. The second part is accepting that this person is mentally ill. Your loved one or friend may never be the way he or she was before exhibiting the first signs of severe mental illness. For example, with schizophrenia, it's described in like 3 1/3. 1/3 of people who experience schizophrenia may have one bout with symptoms related to schizophrenia and never have reoccurring symptoms. The second third of individuals, like my mother, may be in and out of mental institutions for the rest of their lives, on and off of the medication because they believe at some point that they don't need it. They get off of it, left untreated, their symptoms become very severe. And then there are those that we may see on the street on any given day in any city, USA, who are homeless, who are exhibiting severe signs of mental illness. They're left untreated. They're not connected with any services in the community, and they end up dying, whether it's by suicide or someone on the streets killing them.
You also talk about
third piece is advocacy.
Oh. I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Third piece is advocacy. Yes, such as you, Charlamagne, you know, with your book, and also the guests that you all have had on here, using your platform to openly talk about it, creating the space necessary for people to feel free to talk about it and share their symptoms, and understanding that there are services that are available, and we cannot afford to be ashamed of these services and using the services that are available. So the 3-point strategy is the acknowledging, accepting, and advocacy.
Thank you.
One thing you also discuss is undesirable circumstances. And you said, don't allow undesirable circumstances to be excuses for you to fail, but allow them to be reasons for you to excel. So let's talk about what undesirable circumstances are in your book and how that has you driven.
Yes, thank you. I had a teacher in high school named Norma Washington, and she told me I had what she called undesirable circumstances. At that time in high school, I had been to 14 schools, lived in 3 states in 8 different households. By the time I was 14, that's when my mother started to show signs of severe mental illness. And by the time I was 15, she left me in Texas and returned to Ohio. And by the time I was 16, my mother had attacked me, and I was in the court system, where at that time my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, took me in. And so just those circumstances alone, in addition to other things that I've experienced, have been attributed, some to my mother's illness, some just to the factors that a lot of people in the African-American community face, such as poverty, transient lifestyles, and things of that nature. So with that 2-word phrase, I turned it into my life's motto, which is not to allow undesirable circumstances like some of the ones that I've experienced to be excuses for you not to do things, not to pursue goals and objectives, not to pursue a better quality of life because of those undesirable circumstances, but to use them to excel in your life.
You know, I love how you talk about, you know, your loved ones with mental illness, your mom, because, you know, I've seen so many people affected by a grandmother or a mother who has Alzheimer's or dementia and doesn't remember them anymore. Mm-hmm. How do you handle having loved ones with mental illness and you staying mentally sane when something like that happens?
That's a very good question, because it's a day-by-day process. You have to create boundaries and knowing what you can and cannot do for your loved one, knowing when it's necessary to take a step back. And that's when it's important to have those resources that are available in the community, because you can have caseworkers that are able to directly connect with your loved one rather than you. And in my case, I'm my mother's only child. So many times I'm the focus of her psychotic states. I can be the reason or the subject in her delusions or hallucinations. I'm blamed for things a lot, but my love for my mom overshadows all of that. And I want to be there for her as much as I can. So I rely on community resources. And I suggest that people connect with services like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There are local chapters in the community, and they can connect your loved one with services.
Right now, there are people who are quarantined also and going through a lot of different things with the people who they love. What advice do you give people right now in quarantine who are going through difficult circumstances and how to come through it on the other side even stronger?
Absolutely. I suggest using this time. I'm using this time just to be grateful. This has given us a lot of time to be quiet and be still and understanding our thoughts, how we want to come out of this. But ultimately, if someone is feeling like they just can't handle it, you know, they feel too much distress, I suggest doing a mental health assessment and understanding what tools and resources may be available to help you with those things. For example, there's an organization called Mental Health America. And right now you can go online and do a mental health assessment especially since you can't necessarily get to an in-person appointment with your medical doctor, or if you do see a counselor. It's great that there are telehealth services available where you can talk over the phone with a counselor. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has peer-to-peer support as well as family-to-family support. And those services are available on Zoom calls online, and they have created a confidential space so that those who want to participate in those programs can.
You broke the book down into 5 parts too: faith, motivation, determination, preparation, and action. What role did each of those play in your life?
Actually, faith definitely played a part in it. While my family, my mother, my father may not have always gone to church, my father required me to go to church when I lived with him. And it ultimately helped in those rough teenage years, right? Where I was hanging out, with a crowd that we did some activities that weren't necessarily good, jumping girls, unfortunately, trying to sell drugs, just hanging out in the streets and those types of things. But ultimately, my faith and those who prayed for me when I didn't know to pray for myself helped me to excel through those undesirable circumstances, Angela, that you asked about, and ultimately leading me to wanting to do more. And that's where the motivation came in. You may not always have the inner drive to get you to your next goal, but other people in your circle, teachers, counselors, pastors, they can be instrumental in helping you to have the motivation or give you motivation to come out of your circumstances. The determination, I came up with that listening to Shannon Sharp's NFL speech. He talked about having a 5-alarm fire inside. And I identify with that so much because I never knew what drove me to want to accomplish things in my life. But ultimately, it was the undesirable circumstances that I wanted to get away from. So that's where the determination piece comes from. Preparation is being prepared for the things that you want in your life. As you all see on the book, Les Brown wrote the foreword. I wasn't prepared for the help that Les Brown was willing to give me. I asked him for a quote, which you'll see on the back of the book. She has a story for the world to hear. But he was willing to do more, which was write the foreword. And at the time I asked him, he wanted the first 3 chapters of my book, and I had nothing written. So it was important for me to be prepared for what I asked for and for what he was willing to do. Many times we think we can just connect with a person of fame or celebrity and they can just automatically get us to where we want to be. But if you're not prepared to be where you want to be, you won't get there. And then as far as action, the 5th part of it, you can daydream, think about, doodle on paper all day long. But if you don't take action to get where you want to go, you'll never make it to reaching those goals that you set for yourself. So those are my 5 principles that break down the book, #driven.
Well, that's amazing. And I have to say, I was going to say the book is a very useful and helpful tool for people. And I think it will definitely inspire people to want to make sure they check on their mental health even more.
Yes, absolutely. And there are resources available in there, such as NAMI, and giving that information. I suggest, it's so simple. You can just text NAMI to 741-741. Anytime. It's 24 hours a day available, 7 days a week. And, it's sometimes in those midnight hours where people are watching the TV programs that you buy stuff and they're buying way too much stuff because they're in this depressed state, not knowing what to do with themselves. Those are times when you can call upon these services that are available 24 hours just to talk to someone and help you to process your thoughts and your feelings and move you in the right direction.
Do you think that the general Black community has embraced mental illness, mental health enough to make use of treatment and resources if they're made available?
Well, what I know is that we can't afford not to. And I believe that the church is essential. It is an essential part to helping to eradicate the stigma, as well as to help people to feel more comfortable with reaching out to other services. Many times in the Black community, we feel like it's causing us to be less of a Christian or not having full faith in the Lord and Jesus Christ to help us through all obstacles and circumstances. But in my opinion, and using, phrases that we all know, the Lord will give you more than you can bear. And that is because there are people that are specifically trained who have received the proper education to help us in these types of situations, to help us to know that the medications are available to us, to help us know that the services are available to us. So while you can pray about it, leave it at the altar, there are other things that you can do to help yourself or help your family member by using those resources and knowing that you don't have to do it alone. And it's okay not to be okay.
Yes, yes, indeed. Tell them where they can get the book.
And yes, and I just want to say one more thing. You're right. It is okay to not be okay. And I know now is a difficult time for people worried about finances, worried about family members, just worried about going outside in general. And it is okay to have those concerns and worries and to not be okay. But how do you know when it's to the point where it is something that you have to take action and take control of?
If you're losing sleep, if you're not eating the way you're used to eating, if you're not connecting and engaging people, I know we can't personally or in person, but just not wanting to talk to anybody on the phone, those are some top signs that things may not be right for you at this time. And maybe you need to consider talking to someone to talk through that. It's important to just understand there's no reason to be ashamed of reaching out for help. Even if you talk to a friend, you know, I relied on my best friend, Kim, a lot, but I found that I could not keep putting all of that on her. So I have no problem, you know, identifying that I go to counseling. There's no way I could get through all of the issues and concerns that I have, especially in trying to be there for my mother without taking some time for myself and understanding the boundaries that I need to create and to use the services that are available rather than putting it all on myself to move forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And where can we get Driven from?
Yes, Driven is available by going to CoreyEmpowers.com, which will take you to Amazon to purchase the book. Also, I have 5 essential keys that are available, 5 essential keys to loving a loved one with severe mental illness. And you can go to CoreyEmpowers.com and sign up to receive that. It's very useful information and helping you to be there for your loved one. Sharing information and resources. So ultimately, we're not just dismissing these individuals and pushing them aside because they're exhibiting severe mental illness symptoms.
And how can they reach you if they want to?
Yes, I'm available at 330-452-9937. And again, by going to CoreyEmpowers.com. I'm also available on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all under Corey Empowers, as well as Corey Minor Smith.
Oh, you just pick up the phone if we call?
Are you giving out your phone number?
Well, that's not my personal number, you know.
I was like, wait a minute.
It's a separate number. It's a separate number. But it does get to me, and it's very helpful for people. I have people that inbox me all the time for like legal advice and all of that kind of stuff, and I have to streamline it, you know, because I'm trying to keep track and I want to make sure I respond to people. But that phone number, you can also reach me directly. It's a business line, and I do answer calls as well as the texts that come to that line.
All right. I was like, well.
Absolutely. Thank you for the work that you do. And Angela, thank you for your lip service. It's a great platform for ladies. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's also good for you. You got to sometimes release, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Smith,
all right.
Breakfast Club.